Om Kayena vacha manasyendrayirva Bhutyatmanava prakriti swabhava Karomi adyat sakalam paresma Narayana samarpayami Narayana samarpayami.
Dear Seeker of Truth, welcome. In this series of videos, we are going to talk about Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, of divine love, of God realization. So we are going to talk about the Narada Bhakti Sutras, a beautiful work attributed to sage Narada that talks about in full length of the path of devotion. May you all find inspiration in this work. May you all find meaning and purpose in your spiritual quest through these words. This kind of work, these words, these sutras, they bring light and they open the door to the life of the real quest for liberation. May you also find divine love in your heart. Moving on, continuing on the 5th chapter, the different definitions of Bhakti, Sutra 18. So the sage Sandilya thinks that it must be without hindrance to the enjoyment of bliss in the Atman. So whatever activities of devotion should not disturb the enjoyment of the bliss of the Atman, should not be contrary to that. Only the devotions, because God, Atman, it is the same. So all activities should direct the mind towards God, not away from it. And there are many such instances in which that happens, because the natural tendencies is to transform everything, every spiritual practices, including the bhakti practices, as something of a group, something external, something to show to others, instead of internal and directing constantly towards the Atman, towards God. So Sandilya is of the opinion that bhakti, insofar as they do not clash with the contemplation of the self, as self and God are one. So if they are clashing, it is not real bhakti. If it is distracting from the contemplation of the Atman, it is not real bhakti. Whatever draws the mind away from God can never be favorable to developing devotion. On the contrary, everything which relates to God and holds them constantly before your mind's eyes strengthens and deepens the flow of devotion. And like I've explained, there are many of these, of such groups that group in revolving around the purpose of living bhakti, living devotion, but in the end, these things lose the strength, and dancing, singing, all these things become something that pleases the character, that nurtures the character, instead of elevating towards God. Devotion is the quest for the Supreme Atman. Okay, no, before this. Bhakti is supreme attachment to God, which is not opposed to love of self or Atman. God himself exists as the soul in every being. Devotion to the soul is devotion to God. So this higher principle, this higher aspect must be present in Bhakti. It is the divine itself, or else it becomes just entertainment. Entertainment for the character, for group activities, for rituals, for being seen. And devotion is something very, very intimate. Devotion is the quest for the supreme Atman, according to a Vedantin. Sandilya identifies God with the Atman. And that is so. In Vedanta you see Jivatman, Atman, Paramatman, and Brahman all as the same. They are all the same. Even if there are apparent distinctions, in essence they are the same. So God also the same as Atman. So very important, this aspect. If it is deviating attention from God, it doesn't relate to bhakti. And spiritual practices. Many times there are many obstacles in the path. Inner obstacles, resistances towards that elevation. So it's very easy, especially in bhakti. In other paths also, but bhakti has more this character of singing, dancing, chanting, all of this. But many times that higher devotion, that higher aspect of all these practices gets lost, and whatever stays there is just entertainment, amusement for the character. So if it is deviating the mind from God, from the Atman, then it is contrary. Sutra 19. But Narada is of the opinion that the essential characteristics of bhakti are the consecration of all observances and activities through complete self-surrender to the Lord and extreme anguish in the event of forgetting him. So, according to Narada, his point of view is one that takes all other points of view and even goes further than this. It is the complete consecration of all activities to God, that devotee uses every life breath to serve God. And one of the big marks is that if he forgets God even for an instant, he gets really troubled, in pain because of that. Here is described in anguish in the event of forgetting him. So let's go through certain points here. Is complete surrender and remembrance at all times really attainable? Narada says yes. That's really the purpose of it. And it's not difficult. It's easier than in other paths because it is about love. Even in human love, when love is immense, passion is high, you cannot stop thinking about the other. So at that lower level, that is possible. At this highest level is even much more possible. And in a way, easy. Because as you are growing love, you cannot forget it. You just grow more attached to it, more and more. And that will make your attention stay there firmly, anxiously to be there, not willing to take your attention out of it even for a moment. When the devotee lives solely to the Lord, then he is a real bhakta. When the devotee lives solely to the Lord, then he is a real bhakta. What does this mean? It is very common that those who practice devotion, they are still taking care of their little life. They still want certain things to their little life. So bhakti comes as a spice, as something that gives flavor to their lives. But they are still protecting their lives, and that is not bhakti. Bhakti is when the devotee lives solely to serve God, to love God. This is real bhakti. And this is very big, very beautiful and very big. So Narada is bringing some deep points, points that only a devotee that has deep devotion can bring. The devotee becomes really restless and miserable at the slightest lapse in the remembrance of God. So this is one of the marks when you reach this high level of devotion. If you forget God for an instant, you become miserable. So understand the high level of bhakti that we are talking about. In this mental condition that really represents supreme devotion, it is this mental condition that represents supreme devotion, the ultimate devotion. You cannot live without the beloved Lord. This is the ultimate condition of devotion. Because you live solely for Him, that life makes no sense without Him. There's no life for the devotee apart from God. And of course, those in which ego is very strong, they have difficulties in dealing with this, and they don't move forward in the path of devotion. Devotion will be an investment so that they can realize their selfish interests, their selfish desires. So humility has to come first so that bhakti, this supreme devotion, becomes possible. Complete self-surrender under all circumstances is the prime characteristic of devotion. Complete self-surrender in all circumstances is the prime characteristic of devotion. I have to repeat this twice because this is really important. So, every situation in the life of a devotee is there to help him purify his devotion. And when it reaches the pinnacle, self-surrender is present at all circumstances. This is well tested, and I've seen this many times. Life becoming more difficult, intense tests that put at risk attachments, desires, and all of this. And there's always a choice there. Either surrender to God and accepting whatever is coming and the pains that come with it, or forgetting about that and taking control again of circumstances. So complete self-surrender under all circumstances, that is a mark of the highest devotion. That is the attitude that must be brought forth. So the definition of Narada goes beyond, even beyond other previous definitions, because it brings self-surrender as the basis of bhakti. And only a heart which is completely surrendered can be flooded by the infinite bliss of divine love. So in self-surrender, the devotee gives all. His body, his mind, all his possessions, everything is not his. It belongs to the Lord and the Lord alone. There is no purpose for the ego through that body and through circumstances. All has been divine given. And that body, that mind, everything, he puts at the feet of the Lord, so that the Lord uses according to his own. In self-surrender, there is effacement of the ego. So this is the same as your will, not mine. This is the attitude of a true devotee. Whatever happens, it is your will and not mine. And surrendering completely. A selfless work performed without egoism has a real place in devotional and spiritual life. It is real offer to the world, to the Lord. So a selfless work without egoism, very difficult. But still, this is purity. It is a real offer to the world, and it has a place in devotional and spiritual life, because this selfless work is a way to purify oneself. It is very important. And through self-surrender, this selfless work is attained. And that's the only purpose of the life of a devotee. It has no more purpose of its own. Just that constant communion with God. Okay.
Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva, tvameva bandhushka sakha tvameva, tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva, tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva.